today's motor control skills program presentation. My name is Konrad and I'll be your coach for this 4-week program. Throughout this program, we'll be focusing on the basics of basketball, with both dribbling and shooting being the major skills we'll be focusing on and developing. Before delving into the program, let's find out what our basketball actually is, as well as find out who our client is and if he has any previous experience in this sport.
Basketball can be classified as both an open and closed skill. Basketball is an open skill. It can be seen when playing in a competitive manner when the environment can change, such as pressure from defenders as well as crowds, size and noise affecting performance of the skill. Basketball as a closed skill can be when one is practicing by himself, such as a free throw. The type of movements in basketball can be both gross and fine, with the gross basketball movements being a layup, when one is dribbling in and jumping up to finish up a shot. A finer movement in basketball can be when one is standing there and dribbling, with the hands and fingers doing most of the work. Using Gentile's two-dimensional taxonomy, there are some regulatory conditions in basketball, with both the backboard, ring, court and ball being a constant throughout all stages of the game. Some changes in the environment, such as defenders and the crowd, can affect the performance of the skill and make it more complex. How will this program work? Our client for the program was Mark, and we asked him a few simple questions in order for us to develop a program best suited for him. As he had never played basketball before, I started to discover that maybe this program had to be more simple. However, he did say that he had played netball before in his junior years. This results in a positive transfer of skill. This means that being exposed to a specific pattern of skill, it can be transferred from one sport to another. More specifically, as Mark has been previously exposed to the pattern of shooting in netball, this may enable him to adapt to the action of shooting in basketball more quickly and accurately. The fact that Mark is also healthy and physically active enables us to have no restrictions or limitations in this program. Prior to Mark being exposed to the program, we had him perform a series of skills using a whole practice method to assess at what stage of learning he will begin with. We tested Mark on the advanced skills of dribbling, which is a running and dribble, as well as a dribble off the shot for the shot section. Here are the dot points that we will be marking him on in terms of proficiency in each of the skills. Here's an example of Mark running and dribbling. We see here that Mark is dribbling with both hands as well as looking down at the ball. He is seen hitting the ball a few times with his knees as well as kicking it at the end. For Mark's shooting tests, using quantitative methods, we had Mark take 10 shots from 3 different positions we chose to specifically target throughout the program. This would be a shot close, like a netball shot, a free throw, as well as a shot off the dribble, which is the most advanced skill, which will be shot at the elbow. Here's an example of Mark shooting off the dribble. We see here that he's dribbling with both hands and as a poor technique when leading into the shot, as he is off balance. However, he does hold a follow through, or the gooseneck, which is prominent as it is a good sign. How did Mark go? Looking at the dot points before, we see that Mark has only hit one of the 4 dot points for running and dribbling proficiency, as he's seen bouncing the ball a consistent height from hand to ground. In the shot off dribble, we see that there was no consistent dribbling, as well as he wasn't squared up or balanced before his shot. However, he did follow through and keep an upright stance, and thus has a greater chance of getting a shot in, which is a positive outcome from his prior skill to netball. Here are his results from his 30 shots before the program. From these initial test results, we can now see and refer to fits and pods in the stages of learning and relate it to Mark's skill level. From the results we had gathered, we placed Mark in the cognitive stage of learning. This is because Mark is using all of his conscious processes to attempt to successfully complete a skill. This explains why Mark is unable to look up while dribbling, as all of his mental capacity is focused on the ball, rather than being aware of his position or surroundings. Relating it to his shooting form, though he does have some transfer of skill, Mark's results are too varied and inconsistent, and thus he stays in the cognitive stage there also. With the breakdown of the program, we thought week 1 and week 2 would be better blocking it off into dribbling, with week 1 hoping to put Mark in the autonomous stage of learning and hopefully making him progress into more of a game situation. In weeks 3 and 4, we focus on the basics of shooting and advanced shooting. Week 4, we hope to encompass all of week 1 and week 3 content into week 4 and showing reward for effort for Mark. Week 1. Basic dribbling. We had Mark focus on the basic skill of dribbling. This focuses on part practice, which means we want Mark to be confident with different aspects of the dribble before performing the most advanced skill of all, which is running and dribbling. We see here with Mark standing and dribbling that he is very competent now with using just his hands and his fingers to control the ball. As well as walking and dribbling, we see Mark dribbling from hand to hand. Though he is looking down at the ball, he is much more rhythmic with his steps and his dribble. At the end of the week, we had Mark perform a running dribble. Though he is running with two hands on the ball, we see here that he is much more rhythmic with his steps, which is a positive result. After the first week, we analysed and used the 4 dot points of proficiency to measure Mark's progress. We see here that he's got 3 out of 4. Though this is good progress, we put him in the associative stage of learning, which is refinement of the movement pattern. In week 2, we included more advanced skills in order for him to fully complete and become proficient. We see here he's dribbling through obstacles. We then challenged him to dribble through the obstacles, pass the ball, receive the ball, and dribble the ball again. We then finally used the hardest drill to assess his performance, which was a dribble against a defender. We see here that the defender fronts him, Mark controls the ball well, and then dribbles past him. After week 2, we analysed Mark's overall dribbling development. We now put him in the autonomous stage of learning. After last week's progress, we now see that he's got all 4 points of proficiency down pat, and thus makes him an autonomous learner at this point. Week 3, we introduced the skill of shooting. As we already stated before, Mark had already played netball. Initially, we broke up the skill into its core basics after analysing his shooter form. This means that we had Mark watch video as well as watch me perform a simple technique of squaring your feet up and holding the gooseneck technique in a shot, like so. We then had Mark perform the skill. We see here that he focuses on his feet being squared up. As well as taking a warm-up dribble, we see him hunched over a little bit. However, he does hold that gooseneck follow-through, which is a positive sign. Mark, however, in this week, stated that he was a little bit bored as this week was fairly simple in terms of challenging tasks. Since he is understimulated, this may lead to negative outcomes in terms of learning. Mark may not have been at an appropriate arousal level for him to experience any significant learning outcomes. However, we will see if that is the case in week 4. Since we did not make Mark attempt a shot off the dribble, he did not progress in that instance. However, he did become proficient in the other 2 dot points, which is a good sign. He's now in the associative stage of learning.
After week 3's training sessions, we thought it was time for Mark to start getting into the advanced shooting drills. The key component that we wanted to focus on was the dribbling into the shot phase, as he already nailed down 2 of the proficient dot points that we wanted him to do. It was important to show Mark beforehand what a dribble into shot looked like. The important notes I told him was to take his time and ensure that each of the steps was done properly before rushing into the next one. For example, when dribbling in, I want him to focus solely on making sure that his steps and his dribbles are rhythmic. I don't want him to rush into the dribble and into the shot. The other important one was, after dribbling in, to stop and square his feet. In the prior testing, we saw Mark dribble and barely stopped, and then shot the ball, which led to poor results. We want Mark to perform the skill as such.
So after viewing that video, we had Mark attempt it for himself. We see here that Mark is dribbling with one hand to another. He stops, squares his feet up, and shoots the ball. Though he does not hold a proper follow-through, the rest of the technique is perfect, which results in a good result as the ball goes in the hoop. We also used a game situation drill, in which Mark was passed the ball and then shot over a defender like so. We do notice here that his form is perfect, as he is seen holding the gooseneck technique afterwards and his feet are squared up when catching the ball. Using quantitative methods once again, we used a retention test to see if Mark's skills in shooting had progressed. We see here that on the 3 zones and 10 shots that we had him perform prior to the program, he is significantly improved, with 6 out of 10 for his 3-point shooting being the lowest score, and 9 out of 10 for his close shot being the highest. We also see him score 6 out of 10 for his shooting against the defender, which may have been one of the hardest skills he had learned. We now put him as a proficient learner here, as he is now performing all these dot points correctly. In the retention test for dribbling, we had Mark run and dribble to an obstacle, cross over the ball, and bounce the ball behind his back, which he does successfully. Here's Mark's review of the program. We hope you enjoyed this program and mastered the basics as well as Mark did.
This is my review of the 4-week training program. I overall thought it was really good and really beneficial to me. Week 1 and 2 was really good. Focused on dribbling. It was a fun new skill to learn. Week 3 was kind of boring because it was the shooting, how to transfer a skill from dribbling. But when week 4 came along, which was shooting simulation and dribbling, it was really good. It was really fun. Overall, the program was very beneficial.